Have you ever noticed that some people come into our lives just when we need them the most? They seem like they were sent to get a message across or assist us with a challenge. You know that feeling you get when you meet someone, like you've met them before in some vague past? We will talk about the idea that people don't just happen to come into our lives. They do so for a reason. Make yourself at home and stay until the end. What you're about to hear will have a big effect on you. But first, check out the movie, share it, and subscribe to the channel. You will help us make new, helpful content every day for your spiritual growth this way. A young man named Hiroshi came up to the old monk Hotaka politely while he was meditating under a cherry tree in full bloom one day. "Master," he asked, "sometimes I meet people and feel good, like I've already met them, or their souls are connected in a special way. In other situations, I feel bad, like that person is here to hurt me, and it makes me antsy. Do we meet people by chance?" With his sharp eyes fixed on the boy, Hotaka told him, "People don't just happen to come into our lives. This truth goes much further than we think. We meet many people in our lives, and each one plays a special part in our story. Some stay with us through different stages of life, while others come and go." Hotaka got up slowly and pointed up to the blue sky. "Young friend, look at the birds. They don't just fly. The air currents carry them, just like the unseen forces that make the world go around us." Hiroshi looked up at the birds flying through the sky and tried to understand what the master was saying. Hotaka said, "Think of your life as a garden. Every person you meet is like a seed that fate put in your life. Some grow like pretty flowers that only last for a season, while others grow like strong trees that last for years. Either way, they all bring the promise of new growth." Hiroshi nodded and thought about all the different trees and flowers that had bloomed along his life's road. "We often learn the most from the people who hurt us," Hotaka said with a sad tone. "They are sharp rocks in our way, but they help us grow and find our inner power, even though they hurt." When the young monk closed his eyes, he thought about the hard times that had made him stronger over time. "Then there are those who show up just when we need them," Hotaka said, referring to a beautiful tree. "In the same way that this tree's roots hold it up during storms, these people stand by us when things get tough." Hiroshi thought of someone who had been there for him during a tough time, a rock in the storm, but who had later left his life, even though he wished they had stayed. Finally, Hotaka came to a smart conclusion. Some will always be with us. They are always there, like bright stars in the sky, true friends, family, or a match. We share the bad things that happen to us, and the good things that happen to us with them. The young monk smiled, feeling very thankful for the wonderful people he had met and who were with him. When Hotaka looked up at the sky, he felt a soft light moving in his eyes. "Young hero, pay attention to and value everyone who comes your way. Each is an important part of your story, and they are an important part of yours. There are many paths that lead to different outcomes in life, and each experience weaves these paths together. Know that there are basically three types of people: those who push us to grow and reach new levels of awareness, those who bring new life into our inner world, and those who encourage us to keep going. Unfortunately, this type of trip partner may only be with us for a short time." Hiroshi paid close attention and took in his master's wise words. He realized that everyone in his life had a reason, and every experience had a greater meaning. "But their part is very important," Hotaka said next. "They help us remember what our road is really about, which makes us more determined to keep going." The young student was helped by what the master said, and over the next few years he continued to follow the way that Hotaka had shown him. He saw every person, from a random bystander to a life partner, as an important part of the puzzle that was his life. Through both hard times and good times, Hiroshi learned that everyone and everything had a secret gift, a valuable lesson that helped him grow and feel spiritually complete. After some time, the novice turned into an old monk with wise eyes and a thankful heart. His job as a spiritual guide was to teach the young monks the deep truth that Hotaka had taught him, that life is a steady flow of important meetings, each of which adds to the beauty of our existence. What is the lesson of this story in the end? That every meeting in life, no matter how long or intense it is, makes our lives more interesting. There are many wonderful things to find in life, and each person we meet brings something special to us. This kind of person will sometimes leave for no clear reason, and other times they will act badly, making you choose to leave them. We need to understand that they're done with their work because one of our wants or needs has been met. In a world where people's paths cross and split like tree branches, the only way to be truly wise is to keep an open heart at all times and learn from the lessons that are hidden in the folds of fate. We can feel powerless as we move toward our life goals because they are always filled with hard problems and tests. But it's just at these times that the world sends us people who give us the strength to face our problems and get past them. It gives us strength to keep going because they back and encourage us. The young beginner was told by Hotaka that every experience is a note in the dance of life. Pay close attention to the music that comes from the people you meet. Find beauty in the way people get along with each other. Take a moment to remember that a meeting can change us forever, whether it's love, a close friend, or just a stranger. Have you ever felt like helping someone even though they didn't ask you to? What happened? Have you ever thought about how your good goals might have an unintended bad effect? This Zen story will show you that it's best for both you and the other person not to help them unless they ask you to. So, stay until the end. What you learn from Buddhist knowledge might change how you think about connections with other people. You will understand how helping people who don't want help can make your life and theirs worse, and you will learn how this will affect your karma. In a peaceful Buddhist temple with beautiful grounds and old trees all around, the old and wise monk Noro got his followers together to talk about something very important to them. He was obviously interested, and his eyes were fixed on Noro. They all wanted to know more about why things didn't go as planned when they tried to help someone. Noro began in a quiet voice. Life is like a big river, and each of us is a small boat navigating this rough course. We often just jump into the flow and try to move other people's boats without being asked. To make his point, Noro told a story that had been passed down through the years about a young teacher who was willing to help a friend who was having trouble without being asked. Even though the monk meant well, his actions set off a chain of unplanned events that made things difficult and even dramatic for both of them. Noro went on to say that suffering is a vital part of our mental growth. Each person is unique, like a gem, because of the stresses and difficulties they face in life. But when we step in without being asked, we take away their chance to learn, grow, and train. Noro then talked about Shun and Masu, two friends who had been together since school and had been through a lot together. In one day, Shun learned that Masu was having money problems and chose to help him in secret by paying off some bills that Masu couldn't pay. The master said Shun's goals were truly good, but his action had terrible results that he didn't expect. Masu was thankful, but he wasn't given the chance to solve the problem in his own way. Their friendship became more difficult because of this. Help that wasn't asked for caused conflict and confusion, showing that even good acts can have results that aren't expected. Noro said that everyone is powerless over their own fate. We feel like everything we do, good or bad, comes back to us like an echo. We throw off someone else's delicate balance of karma when we help them without being asked, but we also hurt our own. More stories were told by the old monk. One was about a young man who wanted to help a close friend with her problems without being asked. He got into a lot of trouble and ended up having a lot of problems. Noro went on to say that if you go into someone else's maze without being asked, you could start a chain of events that would connect you to many people in a very complicated way. It doesn't matter how well you mean your friendly act could end up hurting both of you more. A person's suffering is often caused by things they did in the past, and our help could change the way they should naturally learn. Noro said that even Buddha knew that each person's learning process was holy and that each person's karma should be honored. Suffering is a harsh but valuable teacher. Interfering with this process would keep other people from learning the lessons that can only be learned through pain. He talked about many times when his compassion made him want to help someone, but Buddha taught him that it was better to wait for them to ask for help. Noro used a figure of speech to explain the idea. Everything we do is like throwing a stone into a pond. The waves go out and then come back to us. When we help others without expecting anything in return, we not only change their karma, but we also make waves that can affect our own lives. Finally, this story's lesson is a warning of how smart it is to know when to reach out and when to wait. Karma follows our actions like a river that never stops, and how we help others can change the very structure of fate. Remember that every person's experience and every problem they face is part of their own karma trip before you try to help them. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let them find their own way. In a calm Buddhist temple with beautiful grounds and old trees all around, the wise and old monk Noro got his followers together to talk about something very important to them. He was clearly interested, and his eyes were fixed on Noro. They all wanted to know more about why things didn't go as planned when they tried to help someone. Noro began in a quiet voice. Life is like a big river, and each of us is a small boat navigating this rough course. We often just jump into the flow and try to move other people's boats without being asked. To make his point, Noro told a story that had been passed down through the years about a young teacher who was willing to help a friend who was having trouble without being asked. Even though the monk meant well, his actions set off a chain of unplanned events that made things difficult and even dramatic for both of them. Noro went on to say that suffering is a vital part of our mental growth. Each person is unique, like a gem, because of the stresses and difficulties they face in life. But when we step in without being asked, we take away their chance to learn, grow, and train. Noro then talked about Shun and Masu, two friends who had been together since school and had been through a lot together. In one day, Shun learned that Masu was having money problems and chose to help him in secret by paying off some bills that Masu couldn't pay. The master said Shun's goals were truly good, but his action had terrible results that he didn't expect. Masu was thankful, but he wasn't given the chance to solve the problem in his own way. Their friendship became more difficult because of this. Help that wasn't asked for caused conflict and confusion, showing that even good acts can have results that aren't expected. Noro said that everyone is powerless over their own fate. We feel like everything we do, good or bad, comes back to us like an echo. We throw off someone else's delicate balance of karma when we help them without being asked, but we also hurt our own. More stories were told by the old monk. One was about a young man who wanted to help a close friend with her problems without being asked. He got into a lot of trouble and ended up having a lot of problems. Noro went on to say that if you go into someone else's maze without being asked, you could start a chain of events that would connect you to many people in a very complicated way. It doesn't matter how well you mean your friendly act could end up hurting both of you more. A person's suffering is often caused by things they did in the past, and our help could change the way they should naturally learn. Noro said that even Buddha knew that each person's learning process was holy and that each person's karma should be honored. Suffering is a harsh but valuable teacher. Interfering with this process would keep other people from learning the lessons that can only be learned through pain. He talked about many times when his compassion made him want to help someone, but Buddha taught him that it was better to wait for them to ask for help. Noro used a figure of speech to explain the idea. Everything we do is like throwing a stone into a pond. The waves go out and then come back to us. When we help others without expecting anything in return, we not only change their karma, but we also make waves that can affect our own lives. Finally, this story's lesson is a warning of how smart it is to know when to reach out and when to wait. Karma follows our actions like a river that never stops, and how we help others can change the very structure of fate. Remember that every person's experience and every problem they face is part of their own karma trip before you try to help them. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let them find their own way. But his action had terrible results that he didn't expect. Masu was thankful, but he wasn't given the chance to solve the problem in his own way. Their friendship became more difficult because of this. Help that wasn't asked for caused conflict and confusion, showing that even good acts can have results that aren't expected. Noro said that everyone is powerless over their own fate. We feel like everything we do, good or bad, comes back to us like an echo. We throw off someone else's delicate balance of karma when we help them without being asked, but we also hurt our own. More stories were told by the old monk. One was about a young man who wanted to help a close friend with her problems without being asked. He got into a lot of trouble and ended up having a lot of problems. Noro went on to say that if you go into someone else's maze without being asked, you could start a chain of events that would connect you to many people in a very complicated way. It doesn't matter how well you mean your friendly act could end up hurting both of you more. A person's suffering is often caused by things they did in the past, and our help could change the way they should naturally learn. Noro said that even Buddha knew that each person's learning process was holy and that each person's karma should be honored. Suffering is a harsh but valuable teacher. Interfering with this process would keep other people from learning the lessons that can only be learned through pain. He talked about many times when his compassion made him want to help someone, but Buddha taught him that it was better to wait for them to ask for help. Noro used a figure of speech to explain the idea. Everything we do is like throwing a stone into a pond. The waves go out and then come back to us. When we help others without expecting anything in return, we not only change their karma, but we also make waves that can affect our own lives. Finally, this story's lesson is a warning of how smart it is to know when to reach out and when to wait. Karma follows our actions like a river that never stops, and how we help others can change the very structure of fate. Remember that every person's experience and every problem they face is part of their own karma trip before you try to help them. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let them find their own way. Noro told us that we should think about what they really need. Not everyone asks for help. Sometimes all they need is someone to listen and understand. Because of this, let us always remember to honor the value of each person's own path. People should never help others out of the blue. Instead, they should do it on purpose, respecting their free will and the road to their own and our own mental and spiritual growth. Life is a complicated web of lessons and chances to get better. People can miss out on a great chance to learn about themselves when we give our help without being asked. Understanding that sometimes the best way to learn something is to do it yourself is a sign of wisdom. So, let our help be a source of light that is given when asked for, with understanding and respect, instead of a series of unplanned events. The old and wise monk Hogi lived in a quiet Buddhist temple in a faraway part of Japan. With respect, a young woman called Shara went up to the master. She was anxious because of some bad relationships in her life and wanted to find answers. Lots of people say that you, Hoagie, know how to spot bad people and keep your peace. The young woman begged, "Please teach me." She was eager to learn as much as she could from the monk's knowledge. Like always, Hoagie was cool and said, "Of course, my dear. I will tell you about the signs you need to look for to figure out who is in front of you if you are patient enough to listen. But first, let me make a very important point. In order to keep things simple, the people we call bad don't have to be monsters. These people are bad or toxic because the way they act and the energy they give off can hurt our mental health and peace of mind. But before we separate ourselves from them, we need to try to figure out what made them the way they are. It was often the hard times and pain they had to go through that made them dry, annoying, and even dangerous. Ask yourself, why does he or she act this way? Before you push someone away, Shara, is he really bad, or is there something about him that makes him that way? And is there something I can do to stop it from making me feel bad? Before you decide to protect your mental health and stay away from those people, you should first give yourself an answer. Shara thought about what Hoagie had said and was touched because she knew how much sensitivity was behind them. Hoagie went on, "If someone close to us can hurt us, we should push them away only after being sure we can't do anything." Now that we've cleared that up, let's look at the first thing you should look out for: being manipulated all the time. Imagine someone who is very sneaky and changes the truth to get what he wants. It could be a coworker who lies to move up in their job. For instance, when you're up for a promotion, he starts to trick you by telling you that your bosses don't like you and suggesting that you take a job offer from another company. You might think he's trying to help you, but his real goal is to get you out of the way. The young woman paid close attention, amazed by the monk's knowledge. She also remembered a similar event that happened to her a year before. "The second sign is not having real understanding," Hoagie said. "Think of someone who doesn't care about your feelings or experiences and only does when it's good for them. When someone acts in this way, you immediately get the feeling that they don't care about your well-being, which can seriously hurt your relationships. He only cares about other people when he needs something from them." Hoagie then talked about the third sign, which was the constant making of strife. Imagine someone who, no matter how peaceful things are, is always looking for ways to cause trouble and disagreement. This way of thinking not only makes relationships stressful, but it can also pollute the world and make it dangerous. As Hoagie said, the fourth sign is the constant need to be in charge. Imagine that a friend or partner was trying to control everything you did and make your life go the way they wanted it to. When you tell someone what you want or plan to do, they start to do things to attempt to keep you from getting what you want. Shara learned from Hoagie how to spot bad behavior and how important it is to have understanding and good judgment when working with other people. She was able to keep her inner peace and be kind to those around her because of this wisdom. The Buddha smiled calmly and raised his hand to stop them. He gently wiped his face and gave the shopkeeper a kind look. The Buddha said in a soft voice, "Thank you." The shopkeeper didn't understand. "Why do you thank me?" he asked. The Buddha answered, "You have given me the chance to learn how to be patient and kind." When the businessman saw how calm the Buddha was, his anger started to fade. He was shocked and embarrassed, so he asked, "How can you forgive me so quickly?" Holding on to anger, the Buddha said, is like holding a hot coal in order to throw it at someone else. It's you who gets burned. You forgive someone not so they can feel better, but so you can feel free and at peace. The shopkeeper thought about what the Buddha had said and realized how much his anger was hurting him. He bowed deeply and left with a better understanding of what was going on. After learning about the real value of spiritual knowledge, he told his sons to follow the Buddha's lessons. Master Kumin looked at the man sitting in front of him when the story was over. He said that forgiving someone doesn't mean agreeing with what they did or forgetting the hurt they caused. It's about breaking free from the ties of anger and grudges, being aware that everyone is on their own road and that people act out of pain is a big part of this. And when you forgive, you free yourself from that pain. When the man nodded, he felt a weight lift off his heart. Thanks, Kumin Master. I get it now. I forgive myself first, then I forgive others. Kumin smiled and said, remember that forgiving someone is a process, not an event that happens just once. Letting go and finding peace within yourself is a process that never ends. We can learn from this story that real healing brings peace and freedom to the heart. We're not trying to excuse other people's actions. We're just trying to get rid of the mental weight of hanging on to anger and bitterness. You can grow kindness and understanding for both yourself and the person who hurt you by learning to forgive them. When we do this, our spiritual journey goes better because our hearts and minds are lighter. But the Buddha didn't seem to mind. Kumin talked about the next few minutes with a calm look and a determined smile. He said it felt like a wave of calm had covered the place. The Buddha didn't get angry. He just sat there with his eyes half closed and his heart open, taking what seemed like an offense. The businessman felt bad about what he did after seeing how the Buddha reacted. He went from being angry to feeling sorry for what he did. I thought of all the charges and insults he had planned, but in that quiet space, they didn't seem important. In this case, the Buddha did not judge or put down the man. Instead, he showed him kindness and peace. Kumin went on. At this point, the monk cut in to emphasize a very important lesson. Thank you, friend. Forgiveness is like the peace that Buddha knew. There is no real thing we do or phrase we say to say, I forgive you. It happens when we are ready to let go of the past and see the person in front of us in a new way. The monk picked up the story again and talked about how the man went home after being moved by the Buddha's kindness. In his mind, pictures of the peaceful Buddha and the fact that he spat in his face came together. The man had trouble sleeping that night because he couldn't get rid of the picture of the Buddha smiling and the fact that he had spit on Buddha. Kumin said that the man was stuck between feeling bad about what he had done in the past and wanting a better future. Kumin stressed how important this story-changing event was. He said that man was going through a very deep period of reflection. He felt sorry and ashamed about how he had acted and was trying to forgive himself. After being tormented for days, the man realized that his mind was always making up painful situations based on the past. Kumin said that imagination can be either a strong friend or a fierce foe. If it gets into the wrong hands, it can lead to a never-ending circle of anger and hatred. Over time, the man realized that the Buddha had not judged him for what he had done, but had had a very clear goal in mind. Slowly, he stopped thinking about getting even and started to truly ask for forgiveness. One day, he went back to the Buddha's feet, not angry, but truly sorry for what he had done. He begged, "Please forgive me, Great Master. I'm blind because I don't know enough. I only cared about my own life and the well-being of my family." With his eyes half open and a peaceful smile, the Buddha heard what the man had to say. But when he asked the Buddha to forgive him, he just shook his head. He said in a nice way, "I can't forgive you because there is nothing to forgive. You haven't done anything bad to me." The man was shocked and asked the Buddha why he didn't want to forgive him. The man did something wrong, but Kumin said that the Buddha didn't need to forgive him because he didn't judge it. It seemed like the Buddha could see past and present and feel the person's pure soul. Kumin says that the man learned an important lesson when he refused to forgive. Forgiving others is an act of kindness, but it's also a process of freedom for yourself. Kumarin went on to say that the Buddha taught that to forgive is to show kindness to both others and ourselves. The man was moved by the Buddha's knowledge and began to think seriously about what it means to forgive. He was moved by the idea that forgiveness was not something that could be given or accepted, but rather a freeing feeling inside. The story went on, and the trader decided to start a road of self-forgiveness after being moved by the Buddha. He learned to let go of the grief and shame that had been beating him over time. He turned to meditation as a safe place to be and learned to enjoy each moment without letting things from the past or fears about the future take over. Kumin turned to the man who was listening carefully and said, "Dear friend, forgiving others isn't just a kind thing to do for others, it's also a kind thing to do for ourselves. We can find inner peace when we learn to look at every moment with fresh eyes, get over painful memories, and let go of our negative thoughts." At the end of the story, the shopkeeper, who had been practicing spirituality, finally got over his past mistakes and went to thank the Buddha. With his caring smile, the Buddha was happy to see him. As the story came to a close, Kumin stressed how important it is to forgive others and ourselves as part of our spiritual journey. He said that forgiveness takes us to a better level of awareness and kindness. We can give ourselves and others this gift, which will set us free from the chains of the past and let us into a bright future. But what does this story teach us? The lesson is clear. For Buddhists, forgiving is not an action in and of itself. It's not something we can give or receive. It's a compassionate gift that you can give to yourself and to others. This view sees forgiveness as a way to help people who have done wrong understand how bad their actions were. When we forgive someone, our care and kindness help them see their mistake more clearly. If he does something bad to someone else, he is also doing it to himself, and karma will make the consequences come back to him like a boomerang, so he will have to forgive himself. Remember that forgiving someone isn't just a way to free yourself. It can also help other people change. Allowing the kind of tolerance we talk about can help you become more aware and grow, building a path to a future of peace and understanding. We forget who we are sometimes when we are so nice and helpful that other people can use us. Being kind can make us think we have to be kind all the time, which makes us unnoticeable. Have you ever thought about why some people are always nice and willing to help you, even when you don't ask? You will learn that being kind has a bad side in the Zen story you are about to hear. You need to understand it to find the right balance if you want to live in peace. Stay until the end, because the advice you get will help you find peace within yourself and in your relationships with other people. The old monk Ero lived in a temple in the Japanese mountains. He was famous for being very wise. One day, a girl named Chiara came up to him and told him how upset she was. "Master, I've had a lot of bad experiences with people I thought were friends, but didn't prove to be. As a child, I was always very kind, but caring about other people has caused me a lot of pain. What's wrong with me?" The master smiled and started to tell an old story that had been told by monks for many years. In the story, there was a village in the middle of a green forest. The people there were very kind and generous, and those traits were what made the community heartbeat. One beautiful cherry tree was linked to the village's wealth. "Then picture this," Ero told Chiara, "a beautiful tree with deep roots that stands for the village's power and kindness. There is a story that the town did well because the people were smart and shared what they had." Ero also said that some people started to take more than they gave over time. Some people went up to the cherry tree and picked the fruit without helping to take care of it or giving it to the other people in the town. So, slowly but surely, the village's kindness began to fade, and along with it, the whole community. Chiara, who was young, listened carefully, and her eyes showed that she wanted to understand the little things in life. As Ero continued to talk about the village's past, his calm look brought to light details and lessons that had been passed down for hundreds of years. The monk said that the lesson of this story is that being kind must be measured. We should give with an open heart, but we should also be smart and fair. If we give without thinking, we might run out of resources and lose the power to really help other people. Chiara was glad to hear what the master had to say, and she gained a new understanding of what it means to be kind. Eero went on, "We might think that being kind is always good, because it helps us stay healthy. That being said, it's not when it goes too far and makes people act nice all the time. We forget about ourselves in order to care about the needs of others, which is a form of harmful kindness. Think of a dad who puts his own needs last, so that his kids can be happy and healthy." New information were added to Eero's story. He talked about how some people had forgotten to take care of the tree that had given them so much, because they were so focused on getting more. He talked about how giving and receiving was connected in a way that was delicate, a flow that needed care and respect. As Chiara was reading, she thought about her own life and the relationships she had had over the years. The monk kept teaching her because he could tell she wanted to learn. He said that asking too much from other people could make you feel let down, and that having limits was important for your mental health. Eero said, "Remember that I'm not saying it's wrong to help other people, but focusing only on other people can be bad. Sometimes we want to make someone happy because they ask for it, or because we think, sometimes wrongly, that they need it, and we offer to bring them joy." Eero and Chiara spent some quiet time talking about the subtleties of kindness and knowledge. The monk talked about how kindness from a healthy heart can change relationships and make both the giver and the receiver happy. Chiara thought that the monk's knowledge was helping her understand a lot of things. She learned that kindness should come naturally, like a gentle stream, from a place of deep understanding and genuine love, and it should never be pushed. At the end of his story, Eero gave loving advice. "Chiara, try to be like the village cherry tree. Show your kindness, but don't lose your balance. Enjoy giving without asking too much in return. Keep in mind that being too kind can hurt you. We don't always let other people get what they want because we think we know what they need. Also, we forget about our own wants and focus too much on what other people need. In this way, we balance each other out and start to fade away because of what we do. We put other people's needs before our own and hurt ourselves by always thinking about what they need. People take advantage of us when we take away their value." Chiara thanked the monk from the bottom of her heart. She thought the story and the advice it gave her would start a new part of her life. What does this story teach us, though? What does it mean? The lesson is that being generous is a great trait to have, but it needs to be carefully grown so that it benefits both the person we help and ourselves. Giving and getting in balance is the key to a happy and worthwhile life. As nice people, if we do everything people ask of us just to be seen as good, we lose the ability to say no and are taken advantage of. In the long run, this could affect our emotional health, drive, and sense of oneness. What should we do now? Should we stop being nice? No, because being kind can be done in many healthy ways. You can tell people how far they can go by setting limits. Don't feel guilty when you say no, when you can't or don't want to go further. Make a list of your most important tasks so you can keep helping other people without neglecting your own needs. Remember to be nice, but not too nice. You and the people you want to help could get hurt by this. How many times have you felt like someone came into your life to shatter your plans and dreams? Sadly, we often have to deal with people every day who want to hurt us for a variety of reasons, such as personal issues, anger, or jealousy. Because of this Zen story, you will learn how to spot the signs that someone is out to get you. Also, if you stay until the end, you will learn how to act so that this doesn't happen again. The old monk Eisen lived in a quiet Buddhist temple in the Japanese mountains. He was famous for being very wise and having a deep understanding of the soul. On a cold winter day, Eisen's followers met in the temple to hear him talk about an important subject. The smell of boiling tea filled the air. The monk spoke in a quiet but deep voice. "Today we will talk about an important subject. Let's talk about the 8 signs that can help us figure out who in our lives might want to hurt us." Kai was one of the students who couldn't wait to find out more. He asked Master Eisen, "What are these signs? How can we stay safe from people who want to hurt us?" Eisen nodded, and then he gave the first cue to pay attention by telling a story from the past. In the Abbey village there was once a wise man who owned a valuable rock. One day, a smart man came up to him and asked to look at the gem while praising his intelligence. While the wise man showed the thief the gem, he talked smartly to take his attention away from it and trade it for a piece of glass. The wise man found out too late that he had been tricked and couldn't get back the gem, which would have given him a peaceful old age. Eisen went on, "Manipulation is like a silent shadow. People who want to kill us will use all kinds of tricks and smarts to twist reality and trick us. We need to learn to spot the sneaky ways people try to trick us. This is the only way to keep ourselves and our inner truth safe." As the students thought about times when someone had tried to trick them, Eisen told them another story to show the second sign, criticism that hurts. "Think of a flower garden," Eisen said. "Imagine that the plants were constantly being stepped on instead of getting food and love. At first, it seemed like a small thing to do, but as time went on, the yard dried out and the plants died one by one." Eisen stressed that constant judgment is like heavy footsteps that crush our self-esteem. People who want to kill us will use insulting words and harsh criticism to kill our soul. We need to learn the difference between helpful criticism, which helps us improve, and damaging criticism, which only wants to make us doubt ourselves. Eisen kept teaching his students with a smile, telling them how important it was to spot and protect themselves from people who wanted to hurt them. The students learned not only how to keep themselves safe, but also how to become stronger and more resilient inside. Eisen added the third cue, which is social separation. He said that in a small town there was a fisherman who was well liked and helpful by everyone. One day, someone who was jealous started to cause trouble by making up lies about him. Over time, the fisherman found himself by himself. He lost a lot of friends, and people in the neighborhood stopped paying attention to him. In just a few months, his life changed a lot. He was all by himself and had lost a lot of customers. His business was in trouble. Eisen said that isolating someone is like cutting a tree's roots. Those who want to destroy us will try to keep us from getting along with others by splitting us up and making people suspicious. To keep this from happening, we need to build strong relationships, show others a perfect version of ourselves, and fight against attempts to isolate ourselves. One of Eisen's guests was asked to talk and tell a story about the fourth signal, which was defamation. A trader who was well liked by everyone lived in an area not far from here, the storyteller began. A jealous foe started sharing false stories about how honest he was, which hurt his image and made people in the village dislike him. People stopped buying from the poor man over time, even though he had always been honest. Because of this, he had to close his store and go somewhere else. Eisen said, "Defamation is a poison that eats away at our honor. People who want to hurt us will use their words like a sword to hurt us and our image with all kinds of lies. We need to protect our image by telling the truth and being open. We need to make sure that what they say about us doesn't stick with people." Eisen taught us through these stories how to recognize and deal with the different ways people might try to hurt us. He stressed how important it is to be aware, have strong relationships, and stay true to ourselves. Some of the disciples were crying as they thought back to times when someone had hurt their image, and they thought about what they could do to stop it from happening again, thanks to what the Master had said. Eisen talked about the fifth signal, which was turning down chances. At first, he thought about a worker who was always falling short when he was about to finish a job. Plans were ruined, tools were lost, and supplies were harmed. Basically, this poor man couldn't move forward, even though he was smart and skilled. Eisen said that sabotage is like a wind that puts out the fires of our success. Those who want to destroy us will try to hurt our chances by putting up barriers and hindrances. We need to stay alert and guard our way to success so that this doesn't happen. Having people around us that we can trust and not talking about our plans until they are carried out are two ways we can do this. As the day went on and the followers sipped hot tea to calm down, Eisen talked about the sixth signal, which was the invasion of privacy, by sharing a story. In an old city, there was someone who kept old secrets. Someone who was jealous of how much he knew, tried to read his writings in order to get the most secret information. But the guardian stayed alert and kept his prize safe, with help from a trusted partner. Eisen told them, "Remember that your privacy is sacred. The people who want to kill us will try to get into our private areas to find information they can use against us. We must strongly guard our private space and be selective about the people we let into our lives in order to keep ourselves safe." As the fog moved in, making the mood inside the abbey even more beautiful, the Master sent out the seventh signal, which meant spying. He said that there was a good fighter in a faraway land. Because of how strong he was, a foe sent spies to watch him work. But the fighter, who had a strong sense of insight, saw through the plots and stopped them. Eisen said that espionage is like a shadow trying to take away our thoughts. People who want to kill us will find sneaky ways to watch everything we do. We need to be aware of outside forces and keep our independence. The eighth sign Eisen gave was linked to threats and physical violence. He talked about a religious monk in a faraway valley who was trying to guide some young people who were committed to crime in the right direction. Some shady person, whose dark interests were threatened by the monk's good deeds, tried to hurt him physically by beating him so that fear would make him stop. Eisen warned that physical violence is the very edge of darkness. People who want to destroy us may use violence and threats. When someone threatens us, we need to look for help when we need it to stay safe. When the day was over and the stories were over, Eisen looked at his followers with kind eyes. "Life is like a dance, my kids. Other people can be our teachers or our ghosts. Keep an eye out for these signs, but don't live in fear all the time. Grow a garden of trust and respect for each other around you. Get close to people you can trust, and don't let the dark things around you kill the light inside you. It looks like not having any friends is making me feel lonely. I don't understand why I can't be as happy with my friends as everyone else." The monk Kobo looked at her with kind eyes and told her to take a seat. "Your happiness shouldn't depend on how many friends you have, Alina. Friendship is a gift that you should treasure. Let me tell you why it's okay to not have many friends, or any friends at all. In fact, it can be advantageous to not have many friends." With the knowledge he had gained from studying and thinking for decades, Kobo began to share the secrets of real friendship. "To start, I want to tell you, Alina, that I think ties and bonds between people are very important. This means that we shouldn't judge things by how many they are, but by how good they are. Instead of having a lot of people with whom you can talk about small things, would you rather have a few people with whom you can talk about big feelings and emotions?" When Alina was asked these meaningless questions, she started to think and understand. She saw a lot of people around her with a lot of friends. She asked herself, what kind of friends are those? Kobo was glad to see that the young woman was starting to change her mind, so she kept going with her list of reasons why not having many friends, or any friends at all, shouldn't be seen as a problem. Having few friends gives you a certain amount of freedom and honesty. This makes it easy to be yourself and live your life without any outside effects or limits. You don't have to follow what other people think is cool or normal if you want to live a happy life. Who gets to say what normal is anyway? Kobo then said that numbers and quality are never the same thing. When you have fewer friends, you can focus on making ties that are stronger and more important. Imagine having only one friend with whom you go through all of life's ups and downs. This link could be so strong that the other person knows every little thing about how you feel. This prize is worth a lot of money. Alina thought about this idea and remembered a time when a girl she knew helped her through a tough time and understood her without having to say much. She started to understand that in life, it's better to find someone who reads and sees things the same way you do, instead of having a lot of friends who aren't really friends. After giving Alina some time to think, Kobo continued to explain things, and gave another reason why he thought quality over number was more important in relationships. Relationships with other people take a lot of mental strength. You can spend your energy on the people who really count when you don't have many friends. Think about how many fights or tense situations usually happen when a lot of friends get together. Keeping small groups of friends helps you save your good mood for people who really support you. Because it's better to settle a disagreement with someone you care about. It's better to fight with someone you care about. Alina found that being in a group was often stressful, but being with one person at a time made her happy and at ease. Kobo then talked about how being alone can be a chance to learn more about yourself and grow as a person. When you're by yourself, you can find hobbies, interests, or skills that you hadn't thought of before. You are not limited by what other people expect of you, which lets you grow in ways that will surprise you. So, Alina, I want you to think about being lonely in a different way. When we only have a few good friends, it's easier to find time to be by ourselves, which is very good for our mental and physical growth. Alina thought about how much time she could spend on her own hobbies when she wasn't trying so hard to be with other people. She also thought about how spending time alone allowed her to stop trying so hard to please other people, which wasn't helping her. She learned beautiful things about herself at those times that she didn't know before. The last thing Kobo said was that not having to worry about social rules makes our lives more flexible. Imagine getting an offer for a job in a strange place with no strings attached. You are free to try new things without worrying about how they will affect the people you know. Alina put herself in the shoes of people who didn't have as many close friends and family and could grab chances without any problems. People she met had flown far away to make their dreams and hopes come true because they were so free. In the end, Kobo said that if you only have a few real friends, you can move to the other side of the world and never lose them. They will always be with you, even after space and time pass. The young woman realized that she had a new understanding of what friendship means after hearing carefully. Because she doesn't have many friends, she can focus on herself and look for relationships that are important to her. This is different from being alone. Master Kobo gave her a soft hug and said, "Remember that your happiness shouldn't depend on how many friends you have, but on how well you get along with the ones you do have." Some people say they don't have any friends, but when I asked them, they said they had just one true friend. Also, keep this in mind. The most honest and deep people I've ever met are the ones who don't have many friends. They are not people who are happy with being average. Most of the time, people who don't get along with others and want to be around few people have a very interesting inner life and very rare human traits. What is the lesson of this story in the end? When you look at loneliness in a new way, you can see how it can help you find happiness, spiritual growth, and personal satisfaction. Because of this, you shouldn't be afraid of it. Also said that having a lot of friends isn't necessary for happiness. It sounds like the story about Alina and the monk Kobo meant something to you. Yes, being alone can help us learn more about ourselves and get closer to the few friends who really make our lives better. Sensitivity can be a good thing because it helps us make deep links instead of shallow ones. How does your journey compare to Alina's?